Hey everybody, this is Joel Hoekstra of Whitesnake and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Stay tuned to Shutter 16 magazine. Yeah, absolutely great to be here. Thank you for taking the time out.
Absolutely. So, in less than a month, you're going to be unleashing Crash of Life into the world. So, tell us a little bit about how the album came together and what your songwriting process is.
So I'd say it was definitely a mix of riffs that I had put together for other songwriting sessions and ideas where I'd review and go, will that fit on the album? Just basic rough sketches, guitar, a lot of guitar riffs this time first. And then some of the stuff was written just designated for the project, like what does it need? You know, maybe something heavy, maybe a ballad, etc. And that pretty much goes off to Vinny Appice. He does the drums, Tony Franklin does the bass. At that point in time, I kind of write the lyrics and the vocal melodies, get a guide vocal down that Girish would sing to just a whole lot better than me. So I basically sing the whole album myself. And then everybody kind of contracts simultaneously when we're working remotely. Like I can work on rhythm guitars to Tony and Vinny, make sure that I'm tight with them. Obviously, you can't get background vocals on until you have lead vocals on, that being the one exception, right? So, like, Jeff has to go after Girish is done singing, but even that was kind of going track by track. As Girish was finishing, it was going to Jeff. Derek worked so fast. He did the album once again, probably two, 3 days or something like that. He works really long days and works really fast. And there you go. And then Chris Collier is really quick too with the mixing and really open to any of my ideas. And so, yeah, that's we're getting a little bit of a flow here going, It's
Cool.
cool.
And now you have Girish in for this album. So, tell us a little bit about him and how he kind of came into the fold there.
Yeah, he's brought to my attention by Frontiers, and his band, Girish and the Chronicles, I'd say, he's doing a little bit more of a screaming kind of almost like, old school Sebastian Bach kind of thing, higher range. And I said, well, he's phenomenal. My model for these has traditionally been like kind of Ronnie James Dio through like Lou Gramm or Paul Rogers on like the mellower side. So not necessarily, none of those are necessarily the high screamer type of singer, So it was just whether or not, like, once he started working on the material, like he was versatile, and he's actually amazing at everything that he does. So when I started getting the tracks from him, I went, wow, this is outstanding. He's really capable of just singing a song without falling back on the screams, etc. And yeah, in the end, really great results. And I think he brings a youthful energy to it, which is cool. Kind of pulls the aggregate age down of the unit. And, he is willing to participate in all the promo and do the videos and things like that. And that's really helpful, actually, just in terms of getting the word out to have these first couple videos. And, he's an outstanding singer. I think he's got a great future ahead.
Cool, very cool. And well, of course, you mentioned all the rest of the band, and they're just, amazing as well. All those guys. Now, when you're working on these songs and you're putting the album together, and you said you started this kind of with riffs this time, but talk about your solos a little bit and how you incorporate those into the songs. Do you have like a specific process for that?
I mean, I've found that it almost has to happen by song that there's a little bit of flair. Otherwise, I've had certain songs in the past that people will complain if the guitar solo is too like just for the song and too melodic and there's not enough fancy stuff. And these albums are made to for what I like to listen to as a listener. So they're not really made to showcase like my shredding per se. But I try to find like just a nice mix of melody and obviously having some extra flair to the guitar. So it's not like, well, this is just what any old session guy would play. So just trying to, I guess, put my stamp on it. And that really is kind of my style anyway these days. I mean, with everything that I'm a part of, I'm kind of expected to be a melodic guitar player with chops, has the ability to shred a bit. And, so for the most part, just be myself. But the solos kind of, they come last. I mean, I'm not really, you can hear on the album, there's really no like, and this is a 2-minute guitar solo that's going to go on, and there's no instrumental material or things like that. And I'm not trying to write songs that are like, hey, check out, how progressive I can write and write in all these odd meters and write all this complex material. I mean, I feel like I could make a record like that. For me, I think this is what the style of music that I kind of enjoyed growing up. And I think that that's like the core of what really brought me into rock. And so if I'm going to make rock albums, I want to write and think song first, think, what do I want to listen to as a listener? Not like, hey, check me out as a guitar player.
Yeah. And it's a great album. I mean, from a listener standpoint, it's easy to listen to. I could just put this on in my car and just go down the road and enjoy it for what it is. And each song is just wonderful. But I had a couple that really stood out to me. I Would Cry for Love. And I also really love You're Right for Me. And they're two really different. And I like how there's so many different tones and variations. So tell us a little bit about that, how those kind of songs come together. And is that something that you have a mindset of going into, that you want to vary it a little bit, or do they just kind of come together as the songwriting progresses?
Yeah, I Would Cry for Love is sort of like, I would say, AC/DC / Deep Purple influence. It's just kind of like pulling from my core rock influences. And then I would say You're Right for Me is definitely like a Zeppelin influence for me. Like, I mean, to me, that's like the main riff of that is an open tuning on an acoustic guitar, how it's written, kind of Jimmy Page influenced. And then I would say like the chorus of that veers more into my pop mentality, just like kind of writing like a melodic poppy chorus to it as opposed to a Zeppelin-y chorus. So at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people that I like to think there's more than just me that feels this way. But like when I grew up into classic rock back in the day in the 80s, I was like all the way from digging light stuff that was melodic like Journey and Foreigner all the way up to like Metallica on the heavy end of the spectrum, Beyond that, like maybe a little bit, like I could get down with like listening to Slayer for like a song or two, but that's about it. Like I always like the melody thing, So like in particular, when I'm talking Metallica, I'm talking like, the Black Album or something like that, where it's like, there's melody to those songs. So everything else kind of falls in there, and I like to think that these albums are kind of like a melting pot of all my, I guess, just like song influences and what I like to listen to. And even when I was younger, it was not always about listening to, I guess, self-indulgent guitar playing. I definitely had a lot of those guitar albums and was influenced by that guitar movement that the Yngwie, Satriani, Vai, Steve Morse, those are my main guys that I cite. But, there was more for me too. I listened to a lot of those instrumental records too. Kind of got that out of my system early though. I did that stuff through 2000 through 2007. And then when things kind of took off for me more in this 80s hard rock world, joining Night Ranger and obviously getting Rock of Ages, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Whitesnake. A lot of the fans are like, hey, like, how come your solo albums are like jazz fusion? And like, shouldn't you be making like a rock album? And I was like, absolutely. That's what I would like to do that. Actually, it would be good fun. So here we are. But I guess the blueprint was to come from a standpoint of like, all right, so this isn't going to be about like trying to prove what I can do as a guitarist. It's just going to be like making really good, like solid rock songs. But the bar is deceptively high, like, I mean, if you look at the performances on there from everybody and in regards to the I guess the musicality at which it's performed, it's definitely, I feel like a notch or two up from a lot of the stuff that I grew up with as well. Like if you go through and listen to a lot of the old 80s records. You know, some of the bands had a lot of talent, but there were some that kind of got through the doorway that didn't have a lot of talent. So I think, you know, it's simpler music, but I think it does actually deceptively take a lot of ability to actually perform this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you know, you're involved with the production process and everything. What is it kind of like for you versus, you know, all the other bands that you're in? Because this is like your deal, you know, this is your baby and you can kind of run the show with this one. So what is it like when you're in the studio working on your own albums versus, you know, all the other bands?
It's a lot more work. I mean, it's very much easier to be like part of the collaborative process where you're like, okay, so that's the part that I work hard on, and then other people are going to work hard on this. I mean, for me, I have to write all the guitar riffs, kind of figure that out. Oddly enough, my production style when I deal with the other musicians is polar opposite, because like I'm a dictator with the songwriting, right? It's like, well, I'm going to write everything. I'm going to write the riffs, the vocal melody, and the lyrics. But when it comes to what people perform on there, I say very little to them. You know, it's like I give it whatever Vinny gives me as far as drums goes is usually like, okay, yeah, cool. And sometimes he does things that I wouldn't expect. And, you know, that's actually what I dig about it. It's like, oh, okay, so he's putting his spin on it and his artistic statement on it. And they do sort of influence the songs in their own way by what they perform. And Tony and Derek Sherinian, I mean, I have very little to say to those guys in terms of like, hey, could you do this? Maybe a thing here or there. And then I'll sing a guide vocal for the record of what I'm hearing with the melody and the lyrics. But there's a designated time for each of those where it's like, all right, I'm writing lyrics for it. All right, now I got to do the guide vocal. And then Girish sings, you know, on this record, like just if you A-B'd the two, you'd get a kick out of it. Cause it's like, oh, there it is sung by like a normal, you know, like mortal human being. And here it is sung by like, you know, this amazing singer. So, you know, it really does make a big difference when you have somebody come in who's really, really great at what they do. And he followed it. I would say he followed my guide vocals a lot more than Russell on the past couple. Russell would listen to my guide vocal and kind of like deviate from the script a bit more, which is fine. Same as the other guys, where it's like you just kind of roll with it and you go like, oh, okay, cool. It's a little bit different than I expected. But it's also cool in that I don't need things to turn out exactly like I picture them. I just want to be like, I just want the opportunity to be like, hey, these are my songs.
Yeah. Cool. Now, being that kind of Whitesnake is maybe not going to be touring in the future, you know, David had said he doesn't, you know, want to do it anymore. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but do you think you'll have an opportunity to maybe take Joel Hoekstra's 13 out and do some touring now?
I mean, the dilemma is just well, first off, everybody's schedules. The second thing is that it would probably be a really tremendous like financial hit to me to try and do so, because like whatever kind of money we could get to you know, play as a unit, then I can't take these guys out and be like, hey, let's go stay at the Motel 6, you know? So
Right.
It's like you have to have travel accommodations that are befitting their, you know, illustrious careers and where they are as musicians. And so accomplishing that is tricky. We have done a show. We did a show on the Monsters of Rock cruise after the first album, Dying to Live, was released. So it's actually been done. So I never rule it out.
Okay.
And I'd be willing to make the investment. It kind of comes down to like, I guess when that would be and does it make sense? So yeah, I don't know. Never say never with it. But it's sort of like, you know, having a time window too, where it's like, all right, this would make sense to try and do this.
Right. No, I understand that completely. It's a whole thing to try to put that together. But as a fan, you know, we'd love to hear it if it's a one-off show or, you know, a mini tour or anything that you would put together. I'm sure people.
Well, one thing about that is by the time you get it together, so as a musician, when you have to throw together, let's say a 15, 20 song set or something like that, by the time everybody's learned it, you want to play it more than once. You know,
Sure.
shedding and getting stuff together to play at one time is really, as a musician, that's like, oh my God, kill me. Like I did all that, I did all that work and like played it once and that's it. And we're not playing it again. So, I mean, if you get it together, the ideal scenario is you do string together shows and you play it. So especially with something like this, that would be brand new. I will say I made for a really cool set when we did it on the cruise, because you've got Vinny in there, so that means you can play Dio and Black Sabbath with some validity and have that make sense in the set, and obviously play some Whitesnake in the set. So we were able to mix that stuff in and not just have it be a set of stuff that people were like, well, if you don't have the albums, you don't know what it is. And
Right.
so it really did make for a cool set of music, and it gave everybody a solo spot, and that was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it went over great on the cruise when we did it. It was a great show.
Awesome. Well, maybe. So I'll never say never.
Never say never. Yeah.
And you know, you've been involved in all these other projects. You've got, you know, you've been with Whitesnake and Revolution Saints and Iconic with Michael Sweet, and of course Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And can we expect you back out with them next winter?
I mean, as far as I know, you know, we're sort of in that the I guess the pattern nowadays where you sort of assume you're back, but you know, I hate doing that in a way, because you know you never want to be like the person who counts the chicken before it's hatched, right? So
Right.
I'm always grateful that they have me back. We seem to be in good standing. They seem to be happy with what I'm doing. So I'll go ahead and say yes, that you know, I'll be out there this year. But you know, usually we talk about the tour, get the tour dates. I think it's somewhere like about like August or something like that. It's more when the timeline that people would. I'd be able to give you a definitive yes that I'll be back, but I'm going to assume that maybe that's a bad thing.
Well, I'll assume right along with you, because we'd love to see you out there. I'm in Charlotte, so you're always on the East Coast.
Oh yeah,
so we always get a chance to see you when you roll through here.
yeah. The Spectrum, man. We're always waiting for the day that Jordan's going to be in the office in there. You know, so
You never know. Never say never.
I think one time he was actually in the building while we were there, but I didn't have a chance to meet him. I guess I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, so big Bulls fan, and you know,
Gotcha.
so yeah, they actually gave me a Jordan NBA Finals jersey one year when I was there, because every time I go into Charlotte, I always wear all my Jordan gear into the arena and everything like that, sort of make the point. So if I ever, you know, do meet Michael, I'm like, dude, I'm a fan.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. The album's great. I can't wait for everybody to hear it. And maybe someday we'll get to see you touring with that. But if not, you know, you've got all this other music for us to enjoy. And I'm sure we'll see you on the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tour, because that's something that we always look forward to every winter as well.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's a huge part of my year for sure. And that's like, gosh, I mean, amazing that like all the way back to 2010 at this point in time, I came to the realization, I'm like, I mean, I'm starting to talk about like 13 years with them at this point in time. It's like kind of crazy how time flies, man, you know?
Yeah, I don't think the love for that on the winter tour is ever going to die down. I mean, that's the most amazing show.
Yeah, it's an incredible production to be a part of, and you know, and also we got a good team with the East Band. You know, we're just, you know, everybody's tight. You know, we're all friends, and so we just all enjoy doing it. And yeah, it's a good bunch of people. I'm definitely like very blessed to like have had the run that I've had with them, and hope to keep it going. You know, it's a great thing to be a part of, as long as you're not afraid of hard work. You know, that tour is a lot of hard work, playing the 8 shows a week, and it's, you know, the Marines of rock compared to heading out with a normal band where you play like a 75-minute set 4 times a week or something like that. So you definitely got to be prepared to work hard, but you know, I've always been cool with that.
Well, it's one of our family traditions every year, and you know, as a family, appreciate all the effort that goes into it. Such a massive undertaking that tour is every year.
It's an incredible production. As a musician, any musician would be lucky to be a part of TSO for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to that, and hopefully, you know, some more new music when it drops. I'm sure everybody's going to love Crash of Life.
Cool. Right on. Well, thank you so much.